Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Good afternoon, and hope you're having a happy Saturday afternoon. I'm David Paterson, and we are here with Jake Novak, and we are supposed to be having left versus right. But today is the kind of day where there are so many things going on. It's really hard to categorize people. And one of the issues that we're going to talk about, I guess we might as well jump right into it, Jake, is the issue of the police officer and the death of the individual who was it a cooler?
Yeah,
he threw a cooler at him.
Drinks, yeah.
And the cooler hit his motorcycle, separated him. He then hits a fence and then falls back on the concrete on his head and, unfortunately passed away. However, apparently the motorcycle was going at a speed where he probably couldn't have stopped, and he was probably high. He just sold $20 worth of cocaine to somebody, and he very easily could have mowed those people down. I couldn't believe that at the end of the trial, the prosecutor said, I hope this serves as I don't know if he said warning, but it kind of like an example to other police officers as to how they should act in a split-second situation. And this was like, I don't know, 48 hours ago that this happened, but I can't get over it.
Yeah, let's get into the specifics of it a little bit. We've been talking about it a lot here on WABC the last couple of days. This is Eric Duran, the former NYPD sergeant, sentenced to 3 to 9 years by Judge Guy Mitchell, de Blasio appointee, by the way. Governor, there are so many things to unwrap about this verdict that are ludicrous, but let's start with what you just said. Yeah, let's just start with what you just said. How is it going to serve as an example? Now, I know people might think, listening out there, especially those of you who are listening on the app, maybe far away from New York, who think that drug dealers speeding on motorcycles are crashing towards cops all the time in the city. Believe it or not, that's not always happening. It's an incredibly unusual situation. Also, picnic coolers are not really a popular deadly weapon these days. They're not the new Shiv.
I looked it up. They're not in the top 10.
They're not in the top 10. I mean, I know the picnic cooler control group is really upset at the PRA, Picnic Cooler Rifle Association. I mean, look, this is the most unusual freaking case I've ever heard in my life involving a cop and a fatality. Speeding motorcycle, picnic cooler as a deadly weapon, the whole thing. So the most ludicrous thing to say is like, well, I hope this serves it. You'll never do that again. I got news for you. Law or no law, verdict or no verdict, sentence or no verdict. This ain't never going to happen again. Okay, I use the double negative. I know I use a double negative and ain't isn't a word, but that's just because it's just that unusual.
It's true, though, the combination of incidents. First of all, he missed the guy. He hit the motorcycle. Then the motorcycle is now disabled, and it runs him right into a fence. When he bounces off the fence, his head hits the concrete. And those 3 incidents, or those 3 reactions, which, let's say we got some other people to do it with helmets and that kind of thing, they probably couldn't duplicate it.
Yeah.
In other words, we'd have somebody ride by with a big helmet on.
Never in a million years.
We smash him into a wall. He falls on the ground. He gets up and has a beer.
This is what you do AI for, because they can run 1 million simulations, and it would probably take 1 billion simulations on AI to make this happen again. And the judge, I think, it was ludicrous in his reasoning. He said, well, the officer, Eric Duran, ex-officer, said that he was trying to stop this motorcyclist from hitting the other officers, maybe hitting some other people. And the judge says, no. I don't believe that you were acting out of anger and frustration. Well, again, if this were a cop who was standing over someone with a revolver, I got news for you. I don't care how good a marksman you are, a markswoman you are. Hitting someone with a handgun is really hard. It's not easy. One of the reasons why I prefer a shotgun. You don't have to have such great aim. Even the governor could probably nail me with a shotgun. No problem there.
A few people with a shotgun.
So honestly, and usually when you cock the shotgun, that's usually enough. You never actually have to fire it, so that's great. Handgun, it's not easy. And so if someone hits you with a handgun, it was service revolver, that kind of thing, even a cop who's been on the range a lot, then I think you can prove intent and prove anger a lot more.
Exactly.
A picnic cooler, it's like that old joke, I've never shot a gun in anger. Have you ever thrown a picnic cooler in anger? I mean, how did the judge determine that? Were there many other you're a lawyer, Governor. Are there many other case law examples of picnic coolers in anger? I mean, no. This was in the line of duty. The idea that there was malice aforethought here, in the split second he decided to pick up the cooler? I mean, how did he even know there was anything in it when he picked it up? He got it, I guess, when he picked it up and felt it was heavy, but still, honestly, there are so many ludicrous levels to this, and then the last ludicrous level is 3 to 9 years for this kind of a thing. I mean, this wasn't Abner Louima or Eleanor Bumpers. This was a guy who was fleeing from the scene in a dangerous vehicular situation, a motorcycle. So bad.
I have to personalize this for a second, Jake. I was around for Abner Louima. I was a little after Eleanor Bumpers. I was still in law school then.
You're impressed I pulled that name out.
Yeah, that was good. And the thing is, I always knew, regardless of how I felt about these particular cases, one day there's going to be a case like in reverse.
Yeah.
And am I going to have the balls to take the right position, which is what I feel I've done in this case and others before that. But we are so politicized now, it wouldn't even matter. There's going to be an appeal. There are going to be appeals judges. I would hope that if there are 2 or 3 of them, that they will come to the conclusion that this was, strangely enough, an accident of involving a person who was in the process of committing a felony because he just sold the cocaine. And, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes it's nobody's fault. It just happened. And he did what he was supposed to do. He was trying to stop him.
Considering that we're talking about human beings here, and in the case of the police, we're talking about armed human beings who have guns, have tasers. The fact, and I'm not trying to whistle past the graveyard here, but the fact that we have so few fatal incidents involving our cops in a big city like this, considering the number, is really a great testament to the police force here. I say the same thing about the U.S. right now in the war in Iran. They're thinking that maybe there's 3,000 total dead after this carpet bombing for 6 weeks, and it's so far really not any civilians that we can really count necessarily other than that school, and we still don't know all the details about that. The amount of restraint is something that I don't think this judge gets to understand. And you said something also interesting. You used the term split second. I'm not trying to denigrate being judge as a profession, being a judge, but I don't think that there's anything a judge does in his or her professional career as a judge that's split second. Even if you're having a hard time deciding on an objection, you get to call timeout. You can call a sidebar. You can go to chambers. Is there any split second decision a judge ever has to make? You can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think so.
Maybe if he hears the building's on fire. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, the courtroom is on fire. But as far as their judgments, and that's the way we want it. We don't want judges making legal decisions in a split second. But we do want police making decisions in split seconds because that's the way it is. And I don't think that you're right. I'll be on the other side from the right. All this defending of cops, I'm wondering, will I have the guts on the day, or as you said, the balls? Will I have the balls on the day when a cop really does commit an act that goes too far? Well, the answer was yes. And when the Abner Louima thing happened, it was obvious that the cops there in this situation were upset about getting slugged in the face. It turned out the person who slugged them in the face was not Abner Louima.
Abner Louima, right?
But that was clear. That was an act of revenge and anger. And if you can remember all the way back to 97, 98 when it happened, I think it was 97. There was actually a lot of unity in the city about it. I really don't remember a lot of people basically pushing the cops there and promoting and saying the cops were justified in doing what they're doing. I don't remember anyone saying that.
It was a dialed down reaction from maybe what had happened 10 or 12 years earlier with some of the incidents in the 80s. The first police incident that certainly appeared to be racialized occurred in 1965 when this kid named James Powell, he's 15 years old, and he somehow had one of the hoses that they used to, water down the streets, and he was spraying people with the hoses, and the police were chasing him, and this police officer named Thomas Gilligan shot him in the back.
Yeah.
And then when he's lying on the ground, Gilligan walks over and kicks, I don't know why I'm kicking, no one can see it, but kicked his body over to see if he was still alive. And that's what ignited the Harlem riots, which went on, for like 2 weeks. And even President Johnson was asked to speak to try to calm people down, and he couldn't do it because there were a lot of these types of incidents that people had felt, and it got boiled into this one incident that, in a sense, it lined everybody up on the same side.
Now, the Watts riots in L.A. were also 65. Were they before or after this Gilligan incident?
I think they were after.
Oh, okay.
I think they were after.
Interesting. Okay. Because these things tend to snowball from city to city.
Yeah.
Right?
No, by the way, for full disclosure, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody came in to my office in Harlem as in the state Senate, and they started talking about how they'd been attacked by the police and this, that, and the other thing. And we think this is another case, We're carrying on, blah, blah, blah. And the guy told us his mother is inconsolable, blah, blah, blah. We called up his mother. She didn't even know what happened. He made the whole thing up.
Oh, my God.
And we were 2 hours from a press conference.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to tell you, the Lord up above must have just saved me from looking like the biggest jerk in the state if I had gone through with that, and then any research would have found that it was a false pretense.
Yeah, this was just such an odd case. Again, a gun wasn't used. A weapon really wasn't used, an improvised, roadblock. Really, it's. I'm sure. I wonder what I wonder if the defense said, "Hey," and I'm sure they did. Hey, if he really had this intent, he would have used his service revolver. Well, they don't have revolvers anymore. I think they have 9mm. But and on down the line. It's an egregious sentence. And we're not telling anyone to do anything about it, but it's important that for these people who make these decisions, this was Judge Guy Mitchell. I was talking to Sid Rosenberg about this on Friday, and he wholeheartedly agreed because we were working on the show together. You have to name these judges when they make these decisions, good and bad, and there's plenty of good ones too. But honestly, this is, I think, an egregious thing. It should never have been a conviction. If the judge was going to get involved, they should have overturned the conviction, although I think this was always a bench trial. I think it was a bench trial in addition to, obviously, a bench sentence.
Well, apparently the officer's attorney chose a bench trial because he thought that this was going to be a difficult case to reconcile. He needed somebody that maybe had more than just what the average juror would know about things, and but that was the ruling. It's very surprising.
Yeah, I don't want to play the psychiatrist because I can't honestly know exactly what the judge was thinking, but I can read his decision and what I read. What?
I think you'd be a great psychiatrist.
Yeah. Well, I want to charge $7,500 an hour, and I want to get one of those white noise machines and old magazines in the waiting room. But honestly. But I can read his decision, and what I did read of the decision, he really did. He played the psychiatrist. He decided he could understand the emotions and the intent of an officer, and I think that was just incredibly wrong. And again, I think if this judge wanted to get involved, he should have overturned. He should. Well, it wasn't a verdict for him to overturn because it was a bench trial, but he should not have convicted, and he should have, I think, also said that what the NYPD, and he could have played both sides. He could have said the NYPD needs more training in these split-second issues, how they deal with people on mopeds and bikes, because we're seeing so much more of that, especially with a lot of the migrant delivery people in the city, and then e-bikes and things like that. He could have done that, but I'm going to play a little bit of the psychiatrist a little bit in just simply from reading his decision. Look, when judges do this and when politicians do this, some of them think this is it. This is how I'm going to help the poor in the city. I'm going to be lighter on them crime-wise. And again, they couldn't be more wrong.
It never works.
It's always the poor who will be the victims. That guy would have run over other poor people. And he would have gone on to do more drug dealing. It hurts the poor to be soft on crime. The poor are the first. We talk about this every time we do a show together, Governor. The poor are always the first and usually the only real enduring victims of crime. So, so if you really want to help the poor, put away the people who are victimizing them. And
by the way, that's why people who live in poor neighborhoods, when they are polled, are very strong on crime prevention, because either something happened to their cousin or a neighbor from down the street. The incidents are far greater. And that's why Mamdani has got to change his whole attitude about Commissioner Tisch's attempt to move police encampments, we'll call them, to the areas where the crime is higher. So, if you want to arrest a lawyer, where do you go? To his office. If you want to beat up a doctor, where do you go? To his office. Yeah. If you want to catch criminals, where do you go? To the places where they commit them. Yeah. And I hope the mayor will change his mind about that, because I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah. The idea that having a police chopper overhead or cops in your line of vision all day is sad. No, that's a byproduct of another of the real sad fact, which is that there's a lot of crime. Seeing the cop isn't the crime. It's the crime that brought the cop to your neighborhood in the first place. That's the sad part, not this idea that, the cops are here all the time and they make me feel uncomfortable. Bill Clinton, when he was president, was pushing that community policing idea, and it got bastardized by a bunch of groups here and there. I don't want to get into some of the problems with that, but it was a good idea. The idea that the police should be a part of the community, should be making friends there. It was the exact opposite of what had happened with the Rodney King riots, which of course happened the year before Bill Clinton became president. Or not the year before, that year. It was 92, right? Because Daryl Gates and the LAPD ran that department like it was an army, and like the places they were patrolling was like going out on patrol in Vietnam. There was a point in time in LA in the early 80s where like 70% of the cops were Vietnam veterans. And they were and they were being trained in that same way. So I was all for, even as a conservative, looking at this idea of community policing so that they would be more well known. And then of course you have to worry about corruption. Yeah, you got to worry about corruption there. But as I've written many times in many editorials, we know how to stop gun crime. We know how to stop crime, period. You get more cops on the street and you go after the people. You don't go after the guns. You go after the people most likely to have the illegal guns. And there were two presidents who did that, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, who both put aside extra money to do it. George W. Bush was specifically going after guns that way, but not going after guns. He was going after gun criminals. It's just amazing. The guns don't get up and walk on their own. And so I like the idea. Again, how it was implemented in every case wasn't always great. But when you had a Democrat president, and I was there on the White House lawn that day in 1993, when he 1994, where he announced this huge amount of money that was going to police departments across the country. And I thought to myself, there goes another issue for the Republicans. They stole it from us again. And then you had Barack Obama give it right back to the Republicans. You had law and order taken away from the Republicans by Bill Clinton.
Wow.
And they blew it.
But we're going to take a little break, Jake, a little, alliteration poetry there. Yes. And when we come back, I have a surprise for you. And the surprise is, I'm going to tell you about the time that I was stopped by the police. We're on WABC 77, and he's Jake Novak, and I'm David Paterson. I have trouble with that sometimes. We'll be back right after this.